The fire crackled, a fragile defense against the encroaching cold. It barely held back the Virginia winter's chill, the frost clinging to the wooden walls. Thomas watched a pot of water bubble, the air thick with the acrid smell of boiling leather, his own shoe, now his only meal. Across Jamestown, others did the same, boiling belts, scraps, anything remotely resembling sustenance. Shoes, once symbols of journeys, were now a last, desperate source of nourishment. Anything once animal, anything that might yield a few calories. The winter of 1609 had turned the settlement into a place of desperation. No ships brought supplies, the lifeline to England severed by the unforgiving winter seas. The Powhatan besieged the fort, cutting off all hope of hunting or foraging beyond the walls. Survival shrank to the size of a cold hut, measured one boiled shoe at a time. Thomas tasted the bitter broth, a ghost of nourishment. His wife, Anne, lay weak in the corner, barely breathing, her strength sapped by hunger and the cold. The leather soup was an act of defiance against death, a desperate attempt to keep her alive. He would eat, feed his wife, and endure another night. The simple act of eating had become a desperate, joyless task, the fort a prison of hunger. He clung to hope that a ship would appear on the horizon. The fire's weak glow was all that stood between them and the darkness. In Jamestown, survival was now a matter of endurance. The taste of desperation lingered on every tongue. Each sunrise brought no warmth, only the harsh light of their prison. Jamestown's fort, once a symbol of hope, had become a tomb. Streets were empty. Those who moved did so like ghosts, faces hollow, eyes vacant. Conversation faded. What was left to say? Hunger and dread were universal. Men risked their lives for roots or shellfish, often returning empty-handed, watched by Powhatan warriors. Inside, women and children huddled, rationing the last kernels of grain, mixing watery gruel to survive. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of cold, hunger, and waiting. Captain Percy and the leaders tried to maintain order, but survival eroded trust and community. Neighbors eyed each other with suspicion. Did someone have a hidden stash? The social fabric unraveled. Each person became an island of misery. The fort's silence was heavy, broken only by the wind and the weak cough of the dying. Jamestown was no longer a community, but a collection of survivors, each trapped in their own despair. Time slowed to a crawl. Each day felt endless. The sun was a distant observer, rising and setting on their suffering. Nights were the worst. Darkness brought memories of home and loved ones lost. Hope flickered, easily snuffed by hunger and fear. Each morning, a man woke to pain, spent the day searching for food, and returned empty-handed. Many gave up, lying down and waiting for the end, their spirits broken. Friends pleaded with them, but their eyes were empty. The slow passage of time was torture, stretching suffering into eternity. Fear was constant, of starvation, sickness, and what they might become. Hunger stripped away humanity, leaving only the instinct to survive. The line between civilization and desperation blurred. They looked at each other with new, desperate calculation. Each day pushed them closer to a line they never thought they'd cross. The fort was a crucible, burning away everything but the will to live. In Jamestown, time itself became an enemy. First, they ate the last of their food: corn, peas, salted fish, then the livestock. For a brief moment, there was meat, but it vanished quickly. Pets became food, then rats and mice, hunted and boiled for thin soup. Every scrap of flesh was consumed, nothing was wasted. Hunger overruled disgust, and the search for food grew desperate. They boiled leather-starched collars, even dug up shrouds for their starch. Each day, the definition of food expanded, each new source more grim. Eating became a reminder of their horror, not a comfort. They consumed their world, clothes, shoes, their very past. The hunger was relentless, a beast fed with the fabric of their lives. Every day the options shrank, and desperation deepened. The act of eating was now survival, not sustenance. Jamestown's colonists were trapped in a downward spiral. The gnawing hunger defined every moment. In rare, quiet moments, their minds drifted to memories of food, feasts, bread, roasted meats. These dreams were sweet torture, a cruel escape from reality. By day they spoke of favorite meals, sharing recipes and hope. But as weeks passed, even these memories faded, replaced by the constant ache of hunger. The world shrank to a single need: survival. Children suffered most. The youngest had no memory of feasts, only gruel and boiled leather. Their cries were weak, their hunger all they'd ever known. For adults, the loss of food memories was personal pain. But seeing hunger in their children's eyes was a deeper agony. The tapestry of their past lives unraveled, leaving only emptiness. Food became a faint echo, a story told too many times. The fort was filled with longing but no relief. In Jamestown, even memories could not fill empty stomachs. The last animal was slaughtered, its meat a fleeting resource. Silence fell. No roosters, goats, or dogs remained. The absence of animal sounds was a stark reminder of their loss. The river, once a source of life, was frozen and dangerous, guarded by Powhatan. They broke ice for fish, but caught little. Even snakes became food, their meat a rare prize. Every living thing was a potential meal. The list of edible things shrank daily. With animals gone, they turned to leather, starch, and vermin. The hunger became a void, swallowing their world whole. The last shoe was boiled, the last belt consumed. Every scrap of leather offered only fleeting sustenance. The broth was gone, leaving behind the hollow ache of empty stomachs. Fires died out. People grew too weak to move. The fort was silent, filled with the unburied dead. Hope had become a ghost. Bodies consumed themselves, turning inward. The once strong frames were now skeletal. Minds faltered. Visions, voices, the line between life and death blurred. Some died in their sleep, left where they fell, their bodies unclaimed. Starvation was an enemy inside them, stealing their strength and eroding their will. They had eaten everything: grain, animals, pets. The stores were bare. Rats, snakes, anything that moved was hunted and consumed. Shoes, clothes, even the most basic necessities were sacrificed. Ships from England were now a fading dream. They were utterly alone, facing a darkness that threatened to consume them. The fort was a graveyard of the living and the dead. Now, they faced a choice so terrible, so unspeakable. Survival had stripped them of everything but the will to endure. In Jamestown, the unthinkable was all that remained. In the darkest corners, a new thought took root: the bodies of the dead as the last source of meat. This was the final taboo, a line no one wanted to cross. For weeks they resisted, clinging to the last shreds of humanity. But hunger was relentless, deaf to morality. The story of Jane, a young girl, reveals the horror. Her remains were butchered for survival. Archaeologists found the marks centuries later, a silent testament to desperation. This was not savagery, but animal survival, the last resort of the broken. We cannot judge them. We can only try to understand. To eat another person was to admit all hope was lost. It was the tragic end to a story of suffering. The colonists had reached the bottom, a darkness few have known. In Jamestown, the will to live had eclipsed all else. The final taboo was crossed in silence and despair. For 6 long months, the brutal reality of the starving time gripped Jamestown with an icy fist. A once thriving community, now a desolate landscape of despair. Of the original 500 souls who had bravely ventured to this new world, a mere 60 clung to life. They were living ghosts, gaunt and hollow-eyed, haunted by the unspeakable horrors they'd endured and the desperate acts they had been forced to commit. The trauma of that winter etched itself into their very being. Then, in May of 1610, as hope dwindled to almost nothing, 2 ships appeared on the horizon, the Patience and the Deliverance. These vessels represented a lifeline, a potential escape from the jaws of death. The new arrivals were utterly horrified by the sight that greeted them. Silent, skeletal survivors wandering amidst the decaying remains of their once proud fort, the ground littered with the unburied dead. The decision was swiftly made to abandon Jamestown. The dream of a thriving English colony in Virginia seemed to be definitively over. crushed by starvation and despair. But as they sailed away, leaving behind the ghosts of their former lives, another fleet appeared on the horizon, a beacon of hope against the backdrop of failure. It was Lord de la Warr, arriving with desperately needed supplies and a fresh wave of new colonists, ready to breathe life back into the dying settlement. He immediately ordered the departing ships to turn back. Jamestown would not be abandoned to the wilderness. There was still a chance. The survivors, weary and broken, returned to the ravaged settlement, forced to confront their past and rebuild not only their homes, but also their shattered lives and spirits. They had to live with the haunting memories of the terrible winter, the constant reminder of their darkest hour. But they had endured the unimaginable, and in doing so, they ensured the colony's survival, laying the foundation for a future they could scarcely imagine. Jamestown, against all odds, became the first permanent English settlement in North America, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Their story is a difficult one to hear, filled with hardship and suffering, but it is also a powerful testament to human endurance, courage, and the unwavering will to survive. Against all odds, they had survived the darkest night, emerging into the dawn with a renewed sense of purpose. The seed of a new nation was planted in the fertile ground of suffering and hope, watered by tears and nurtured by unwavering determination. The will to survive, they proved, is often stronger than despair itself.